All right, in the airway and breathing course here, no R-rated stuff here. It's all G and PG stuff. And Johnny and Roy know exactly how to deal with their ET tube. It's a key part of their toolbox and something that they are expert at. And so in the endotracheal tube unit, we're going to talk about selecting and prepping the ET tube. That's this lesson. Then we'll come back with another lesson on bougies and stylettes, another one on how to place and confirm, another one on how to secure. ET tube selection and preparation. So tubes come in different sizes. That size is measured in millimeters, and it refers to the internal diameter. I don't know why you need to know that, but you might be asked a question on the Irrational Registry Trivia exam or something, and you would want to know what that was. Some services carry just whole sizes, some carry whole and half sizes. So a pretty well-stocked Airway kit's going to have a number 5, a 6, a 6.5, a 7, a 7.5, and an 8. Some services will go up to 8.5 and 9. Those are mostly for giraffes and Clydesdales. And so otherwise, you just kind of stick with this basic set. The smaller sizes will come in cuffed and uncuffed. We're starting to see in recent years that there are cuffed tubes that go down to the 3 and 3.5 and 4 sizes. In the past, those have just been uncuffed. We'll talk about that some more as we're starting to delve further into things. But how do you decide what size to use? Well, in the adult males that are, in the near 6 foot range, those folks usually get an 8. Smaller adult males or taller adult females get a 7. Small adult females maybe a 6. And then under that, with kids, you end up with a length-based chart, which everybody calls the Broslow. The Broslow is one version of a length-based chart that's out there. And then the picture there on the right of the Broslow being used to measure this little guy. And then you measure him, and he comes up in like the yellow zone there, I think is where he is. And you look in the yellow zone on the tape, and it tells you what size things to use. So if you haven't seen a Broslow, we'll let you see one of those in lab pretty much early on. You'll become Broslow friendly before it's all over. Basic parts of the ET tube. There's the pilot balloon, which gives you an idea of the status of the cuff once the tube is placed. You can't see the cuff, but you can see the pilot balloon. You can feel it. Is it squishy or is it good and taut? And that helps you know the inflation of your cuff. The tube is marked along its way at various depths for depth of insertion, and we will use that to document where we place the tube, as well as to see during a call if that tube has moved. Typically, just for kind of speeding ahead here, typically you want your tube to be 3 times as deep as it is big. In other words, if I'm using a 7 tube, then I want it at 21, 7 times 3, 21 centimeters deep. General rule. Now that, of course, is based on you getting the right size tube. So if you're using a tiny tube when you should be using one that's 2 sizes larger, you're not going to be deep enough. So we'll talk about insertion stuff later on, but I wanted to show you the depth marks, and that's marked with the green arrow. The size of the tube is printed clearly on the side of the tube. So the size of the tube by the yellow arrow. And then there's a black mark that goes at the vocal cords, and the cuff goes past the vocal cords. In an uncuffed tube, there will be marks where the cuff would be to help you decide where to place that tube. Even brand new tubes that come right out of the package have cuff leaks, and boy, that's a deal, because you've gone through this great intubation, you've successfully placed the tube, and now you can't get any chest rise because your cuff's leaking. And you're like, well, why is that? It came right out of the package. But things happen, and so we need to test that for cuff leak before you go in. The pilot balloon lets you see what the status of that cuff is, as we said, and we want to keep the tip, the cuff and the tip as sterile as we can. But this cuff testing thing means that you need to inflate to 10 cc's and then take the syringe off to make sure the valve holds. The valve that's on the pilot balloon could be leaking, or the cuff itself could actually be leaking. And then so you test your cuff by inflating to 10 cc's, taking the syringe off, making sure everything holds, put the syringe back on, pull that 10 cc's of air out of there, and leave it sitting there locked and loaded and ready to go. So ET tube prep and ET tube selection is a key part of your airway management. Lubrication is also a key part. Now, you can overdo this. We're not trying to lube the entire tube. We just want the tip and the cuff to slide through the cords. You don't want to get hung up or do damage to the cords with the cuff or the tip. So you want to lube the tip and cuff. And I like to try to tear that package open and dip the tube in it rather than try to tear the package open and pour it out like ketchup, because that gets everywhere. And I really like ketchup and I really don't like lube. But lube is good, and lube should be used when you're prepping your tube.